WHKY. Follow us on Twitter.
First Talk with Hal Rowe, WHKY Talk Radio.
Good morning. Welcome back to First Talk with Hal Rowe on WHKY Talk Radio for the Greater Hickory Metro. Molly Rice joins us this morning. Certainly no stranger to the First Talk studios. We have her in at least once a year. We ought to do it more often. She's the director educator at St. Stephen's High, who heads up the Tractor Shed Theater. And every year they do a civic engagement show. And there's been several different shows that we have featured here on the program. We've usually had a couple of the actors in from St. Stephen's, found out a little bit about them. And this year they're raising awareness funds for Exodus Homes. And joining us this morning, certainly no stranger to the First Talk studios. We were talking about this. I know her when she was Susan Smith. And over the years, she is the Reverend Susan Smith Walker, who I've had the pleasure of knowing for a number of years and has just done great work with Exodus Homes. And the choir, you've worked with the choir, so many different aspects of Exodus. So it's just really good to see you again. And just a wonderful
Thanks, Hal.
career over the time that we've known each other. It's just really, really good to see you again. Molly Rice, talk to us a little bit about the show. Well, first of all, for people who might not be familiar with this, Tractor Shed Theaters actually takes place, or did take place, in the old tractor shed at St. Stephen's High. That's true.
That is true. Cindy Lundy was the drama teacher before me at St., and she was kind of responsible, along with Deanna Taylor, in converting the shed into a classroom for theater. And since I've been there, we use it as a black box and mostly do all of our shows in that small space. Yeah.
So theater before Ms. Lundy at St. Stephen's was not, I don't think, was a real big thing. And maybe they had a theater department, but certainly Ms. Lundy and you have tried to expand that and make theater more accessible to a lot of the students there. And you have, I would say, a rather robust theater department now. Do you not? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I've been at St. for 13 years, and it was
really?
not. Yes,
No
13.
Way.
Big 13.
Wow.
It actually wasn't a full-time program. Cindy did it part-time, which means she did it full-time. And so I do it full-time, which means full-time. Yeah,
right.
Putting the hours in. I actually do spend about 800 hours after school for free with students each year.
Did not know that. When you started doing this, if I'm not mistaken, you came here and started talking about that. I mean, well, I want to say, was it 13? No way, it was 13 years ago.
13 years. I've been at St. Stephen's.
Wow, because we met you just when you had started that. Because Miss Lundy, I think, wasn't Miss Lundy Tom Lundy's? It was Mr. and Mrs. Tom Lundy.
That's right.
Who was the county manager.
That's right.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I came in from Ireland, so I had brought in my experience there doing piecework with my husband, Adrian Rice.
Sure.
Yeah. So we've been in Hickory for 13 years now, the two of us.
Wow, I did not realize. Well, if it wasn't 13 years ago, it was shortly after that. So you've developed a theater and a theater program.
Yes.
And one of the things that you do every year is the civic engagement shows. And we have had a variety of different topics and different actors who have come through. So tell us about this year's civic engagement show.
Yeah, this is our 7th civic engagement production. We worked with...
Well, maybe it's 7 years ago that we've been working
I think
together.
it's cool that it's 7 since it's Exodus and it's got that biblical number to it. I love that. But we did reach out. We worked with Women's Resource Center, Safe Harbor Rescue, Family Guidance Center, Children's Advocacy and Protection Center. Then we worked with Pace at Home with the elderly. We worked with Pastor Jack with Grace House Day Shelter to carry the stories of our homeless neighbors. We worked with Guardian Ad Litem and and told 10 heartbreaking stories of children in this area. We worked with Catawba Valley Behavioral Health Care, and that was really eye-opening, and we looked at mental health. And last year we worked with Catawba Regional Hospice,
Right.
and did the stories of the bereaved and those that were in hospice and the workers. But Exodus Homes, again, is really close to my heart because our vice principal has a very special part in our show to tell the stories of recovery. A lot of times we focus on, that we have a drug problem or that we have a crime problem in Hickory. But do we really celebrate those in recovery? So students chose this particular organization, charity, to do that, to look at recovery stories. So we're really excited about this show. And it's on Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
Very
so to
nice.
celebrate the legacy of the great man himself, what a powerful, at Exodus Missionary Outreach Church. I'm so excited. I know the kids are, and Monday is very soon. So please, let's get some support for this amazing show that these kids have written. It's all their work.
Who's the vice principal?
Chris Johnson.
Chris Johnson, Young Men of Integrity.
Yes. Young people, I think he's
young
changed
people?
it to now.
Okay, okay,
He's including women
Young
as well.
People of
Look at
Integrity, because
that.
when we first met Chris, it's not Robinson. I keep going back to Robinson. It's Chris
Johnson.
Chris Johnson, thank you. When we first met Mr. Johnson, it was a number of years ago, and he came in and he was talking about, at that time, the beginnings of Young Men of Integrity, and we were fascinated by that program and what he wanted to bring to it. So we've known him for a number of years, but I did not know he was the vice principal.
He
I know that he has
is.
continued to grow and continued to progress professionally,
Yes.
and with what he has done as an individual. So that's just great that he is the vice principal.
Yeah, and his life story starts off our show and ends our show.
Really?
So we're really excited to share that. But we also have the stories of Reggie Longcrier. I read his book over Christmas, From Disgrace to Dignity.
Fascinating,
And
isn't it?
I wrote a poem myself. I was so spellbound by his travel, his journey. And so we're excited to do his story. And we are doing Reverend Susan Walker's story, Smith Walker, and we're really excited to share her story. She was kind of humble. She was like, focus on everybody else. And I was like, we love you too. We want to focus on you too. Because what the Reverends have done for this community is amazing.
It really is.
And we have 2 recovery stories from Darlene and Bobby. So we're excited to tell their story.
Very nice. So we'll have these stories of recovery. This will take place at Exodus Missionary Church, right? And that's I think everybody knows that's just off Highland Avenue. Is that correct? Still the same location. And the show is Monday. What time is the show?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Is this a ticketed event? Do we need to get tickets in advance?
No tickets in advance, just tickets at the door. And
Tickets
they
at
are
the door.
$10 each, and
Okay.
that money goes directly back to Exodus Homes.
Okay.
And our cleaning supplies, if you want to bring in, because you don't have $10, but you want to see it, bring us a bunch of toilet paper, and we'll be happy enough.
Very good. Just things like that.
Things that are
maybe-
needed.
Right.
Yeah.
When we come back, we'll talk with the Reverend Susan Smith Walker a little bit about her story, but more about the Exodus Homes story, about her role there, because she's been a vital part of this organization for a number of years. She's the Assistant Executive Director of Exodus Homes. More First Talk right after this. Good morning. Welcome back to First Talk with Hal Rowe on WHKY Talk Radio for the Greater Hickory Metro. We're talking this morning about the civic engagement show, Stones of Hope, Stories of Recovery, from the Tractor Shed Theater, St. Stephen's High School. Joining us this morning, the director, educator at St. Stephen's High, Tractor Shed Theater, Molly Rice. Also joining us, Josh Killian. He's a senior. We'll be talking with him about his role. Addison Whaley, a sophomore, not originally from the area, from Illinois, and she got here quick as she could. And we're just glad to have her here in the area with us. And, of course, right now we're going to talk with the Reverend Susan Smith Walker. When I first met, of course, Susan Smith, but Susan Smith Walker, Assistant Executive Director at Exodus Homes. And, wow, what a story with Exodus Homes, and your own personal story, too. And, as we met and we talked this morning, I had forgotten, and I hope you don't mind that I bring this up, a breast cancer survivor as well.
True.
A cancer survivor.
Yes.
And, of course, other aspects of your life that we're not going to get into this morning because that's personal, and you can share as much as you or little as you want to with folks. But just knowing that you have had a wonderful career with Exodus Homes by being able to help individuals in the community. Let's go back and kind of start. Where did you start with Exodus Homes? Was it with the church? Was it Exodus Missionary Outreach Church?
It was when I had moved here from Charlotte. I read about the Reverend Reggie Longcrier and his new church meeting in a funeral home, that it was going to be a multi-ethnic inner city ministry reaching out to people who were not normally comfortable in church or welcome. And it just sounded like such a great idea. I went the very first Sunday that I lived here, and the rest is history.
Did you sing in the choir?
Years.
Did you start singing in the choir?
I sang in the choir that first Sunday. When he saw me walk in with my tambourine, he said, "Why don't you go ahead and get on up in the choir?" Right. And I said, "Wait a minute, I might not know the songs." He said, "It doesn't matter." It was only 4 people in folding chairs. He said, "Go ahead, just get up in the choir." So I did, and that was 21 years ago, and I'm still singing with the choir today.
Wow, that's very cool. Now, of course, you became very involved with Exodus Homes. And I hope I've got this right, Exodus Missionary Outreach Church. Do I have that right?
Right.
I didn't even have that written down. I'll forget.
Good for you, Hal.
I was going to say it's been a number of years, but I got that right. So then you became involved with Exodus Homes, and maybe people have heard of Exodus Homes. Briefly, help us with a description of what Exodus Homes, that part of, because that grew out of Reverend Longcrier's history and out of the church. Did it not, ma'am?
Yes, it did. He founded the church to do this, and
Right.
so we were in the church
Okay.
for a year, visioning and dreaming of the housing program that we're going to have. And today, we are a faith-based United Way agency that provides supportive housing for homeless people coming back to the community from treatment centers and prison. We have 63 beds, primarily in the Ridgeview area, but we also have a house in the Highland neighborhood. We have a house in the Kenworth neighborhood. We have our vocational training program in our thrift store in Green Park.
Right.
So we're kind of all over town.
And I want to talk a little bit more about the vocational training in just a moment. But people talk about recovery, recidivism. People don't realize. Maybe people don't know anybody who's ever gotten out of prison. But it's not like in the movies where they send you a check and they basically say, thanks, good luck, goodbye. And so many people go back out into a situation where they got to go back to the old playgrounds and playmates. They don't have an opportunity to go to some place that offers recovery. And that's one of the things that Exodus Homes does, is to give them a stable environment where there is no drinking, no drugging. And this is a place where they can go and try to assimilate, for lack of a better word, back into society. Is that correct?
That's true, yes. Without the right kinds of help, it's almost impossible to get your life back.
Right.
In our country, we incarcerate more people in the United States than any country in the world per capita based on our population. And most of those folks are coming out. And so when they come out, not only have they paid their debt to society, but now we've locked them out of society with all of the laws and the policies that say you can't live here, you can't work there, you're not eligible for financial aid, you can't get food stamps, you're not going to be able to get this license back, that license back. We have set up a system that makes it almost impossible for people to re-enter society successfully without the right kinds of help.
Now, with the right kinds of help, one of the things let's talk about is the vocational aspect of this, vocational work, because you've got some wonderful things happening there with Exodus Works. And we talked about this. Exodus Works, really, it was a difficult time for Exodus Homes. And Exodus Works really helped continue this program along. Tell us about Exodus Works then and today.
Well, like a lot of organizations in this area during the recession, we almost lost the ministry twice.
Right.
Because there just weren't any jobs out there for our folks. And so we had created our own vocational training program and enterprises within that in order to generate revenue to support the housing program. And over the years, that has become our primary source of funding.
So people, when they get it, it's not a free ride. They may have a couple of days where they can come and just kind of take a deep breath, but then they're going to work. They're getting back up. They're getting up out of bed. They're having a structured environment. They're expected to, and you used the word redemption.
They're expected to participate in their own redemption. And you get up and your first meeting's at 7 a.m. and you're busy all day long in the vocational training program, going to work, going to outpatient treatment, going to school, volunteering in the community, volunteering in the program. Your last meeting is probably at 8 o'clock at night, and you're ready to go to bed by fine. You've been busy all day long.
And you've got some vocational opportunities now that are happening, which I did not know about, which are just great. But there's a couple of furniture companies who are helping out, who were looking for good employees, and these people are looking for jobs.
That's right.
That sounds like a natural kind of marriage here. This is very cool. Tell us about that.
Yes, Vanguard Furniture in Conover. I want to thank John Bray for his vision in that.
What a cool guy, huh?
He's a totally cool guy.
He really,
was the
really
one
is.
he's the one that started this model with us, where we take our residents and put them into his manufacturing facilities as trainees, and they can work there for up to 6 months, and they try them out, and our people get a chance to get back in the workforce that way. And after 6 months, then they're able to hire them as full-time employees with a living wage, benefits, without any questions asked about their criminal records or their work histories, because they've had a chance to really try them out and see their work ethic and what kind of employees they would be. Also, Mitchell Gold and Bob Williams in Taylorsville and Statesville is doing the same thing with us now. And so we run folks to Conover, Statesville, and Taylorsville every day in the vocational training program. And over the past 2 or 3 years, we've had many of them hired on as permanent full-time employees in those two companies.
So you've got somebody, so employers are looking and they say, wow, if we could just get some people who could pass a drug test and no criminal record, we could really be in great shape.
Well, they have criminal records.
But what we have here is somebody who's got no drug, they're passing the drug test.
Absolutely.
But what they're doing is through this recovery program, redemption program, they're able to say, okay, you've got a criminal record, but we're going to give you a shot. We're going to give you a try. If you show up, if you work hard, we're going to take a look at this in a different way. And we're going to be able to get good employees, something that we need, and you're going to be able to get a job, something you need, and this is going to work out good for everybody. So it's just that type of innovation. It's just that type of thinking differently that has kind of been part of what Exodus Homes has done for a number of years.
That's exactly why it happened. And not only are they guaranteed to be drug and alcohol free, but they have transportation. They're going to be there on time every day. They have a lot of support at home where they live. And so you have a better employee when they have a good home situation, a healthy environment to live in.
And let's not leave out the divine third. This is the work of men and women here, but also it's a spiritual program. It's church. It comes from a church.
Absolutely. God is the unseen power at work in our work. That is first and foremost what we believe. We are not pushy about our faith. People come to us because they are hungry for a relationship with God. They've tried drugs, they've tried the street, they've tried rehab, they've been in jail, they've been in prison. What have you got to lose? Try God. And a lot of people have found that to be the answer, that there's a power greater than you are that can do for you what you cannot do for yourself.
That's just it's wonderful. It really, really is. So it's always so nice to see you. And we'll be back with more First Talk. We're going to talk with Josh Killian and Addison Whaley. We're going to talk about the upcoming show, Stories of Hope. It's
Stones of Hope.
Stones of Hope. More.
This is WHKY Talk Radio, 1290 AM and 102.3 FM.
Good morning. Welcome back to First Talk with Hal Rowe on WHKY Talk Radio for the Greater Hickory Metro. Our guest this morning, the Reverend Susan Smith Walker, who's just a delight. We've had her in for years. We've known each other for years.
For years.
And of course, Rev not here with us this morning, but the Reverend Reggie Longcrier, who's been in for years, and we always enjoy seeing. I just don't get to see enough. I get to see him out and about every now and then. You know what? I'll tell you something about the Reverend Reggie Longcrier that maybe not a lot of people know. He's a great hugger. He has got a great hug, and he would not mind me sharing that with you. And if you ever see him, he would not. I don't think he would mind.
And a great smile.
If you ask him for, oh man, great smile. But he's one of those.
He says he went to cheese school. Cheese.
He's one of those guys who we're so fortunate to have in our area. Molly Rice, director, founder, St. Stephen's, educator, St. Stephen's High School, Tractor Shed Theater. They're doing the program. It's called Stones of Hope. Is that right? Do I have their name right?
That's right. Stories of Hope, Stories of Recovery. And that's actually from Martin Luther King Jr., a quote he says, "Out of a mountain of despair, a stone of hope." And for us, that's kind of what we're representing, that these stories are stones of hope. Recovery, that's what you have to recover, is hope. You don't have hope, you're gone. And for me, it's very personal, too, because my brother overdosed at 36, and he didn't recover. He was also in prison and jails and in Newton, and he could never find any program like Exodus Homes. And that's why my heart is so with this show, with this organization, because I am also representing my beautiful brother as I bring my students through this creative process for Exodus Homes.
I think that's wonderful. I'm glad that you shared that with us. Thank you very much. Josh Killian, senior at St. Stephen's. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
I'm well. Nice to see you this morning, sir. And you're involved with the theater department?
Yeah.
But how long have you been in the theater department?
I've been there for 4 years now.
You've been doing theater for 4 years?
Yeah.
And also, just to let people know, you're on the front page of the paper today, right?
Yeah.
With our other guest, Addison Whaling. Now, of course, you don't have to go out and buy a paper because you're front page, top of the fold. So you could just go up and look at the paper box and say, well, there's Josh. That's good. So you've been involved in theater. But also, just to kind of let people know, which I think is cool, you've been very involved with sports as well. It hasn't been just theater. So you can do sports and you can do theater, right?
Yeah. I've been playing football for 4 years, and I just finished up my senior year with my senior game. And that was really emotional for me because sports have been a big part of my life.
Sure. You're a wrestler as well? Was that right?
Yeah. I wrestled for 6 years, and I played football for 7 years total.
Right. So what position you play?
Linebacker.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So and you guys did really well this last year.
Yeah, we just got a little robbed from the playoffs.
Well, just don't beat around the bush. How do you feel about it? It's just a little robbed for the playoffs. There you go. Well, I think it's fantastic that you do both. So tell me about the show. Tell me about Tractor Shed Theater, and tell us about Stones of Hope, Stories of Recovery. Do you play different roles? Because I know that sometimes our buddy Molly Rice over here, you play different parts, or you have different aspects of it. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing and your role with Stones of Hope.
Well, with this particular performance that we do every year, it's more like we go to an organization and then we come back. And we just think about, we reflect on what everybody says, we write it down, and then we form partners and other groups, and then we start to create like different like pieces of art on our own.
Right.
And I chose to do spoken word. And I had partners, Seven Laisley and Emily Hiddifer.
So you actually went and took a tour of Exodus Homes, saw what was going on there.
Yeah.
Maybe did you meet some of the folks or say hi to anybody, or were people out at work? Or tell me a little bit about that experience.
The two people that we met were Bobby and Darlene.
Okay, gotcha. So that's we've got some stories of recovery there.
Yeah.
So that Molly Rice was talking about earlier. Did you have any idea about recovery or what was going on with these folks before? Was it kind of eye-opening for you, or did you kind of know a little bit about this before you visited?
It was more eye-opening because there's these people with jobs, and then all of a sudden their lives just they get addicted to something, and then their life kind of it's like thrown away, and they live on the streets and they're still addicted, and they have these packs or and groups with other people,
right?
And and they get hooked on the substances, and they come to places like Exodus Homes to get help. And something that I thought was really cool was, or I thought it was interesting.
You can say really cool. I do it all the time.
Well, it was like on the outside of the jails and the prisons, there's like drug dealers that walk around waiting for someone to get right up to the fence or something, and then give them like a sample of something.
The next thing you know.
Yeah, and then they're hooked right back on it.
Wow. So tell us what are you going to do in the show? Are you going to give us a little part of the spoken word, or what are we going to do this morning?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Your story's on.
It's on Darlene. It's called Shelter. It's a spoken word piece.
Okay, it's called Shelter.
Yeah.
And it's a spoken word piece, ladies and gentlemen. Josh Killian, whenever you're ready, sir. And we're going to cue this up here on the phone. So we'll have part of it on the phone, part of it spoken word. Josh Killian, Sr. at St. Stephen's High School, part of the Tractor Shed Theater. Sports and theater, football player.
Through an ocean of adversity, you have to seek shelter on the shore of happiness. Because even when you fall below depths so far that you hit rock bottom, you have to be able to pull yourself back up to the surface in order to breathe again. She was young, and like all of us, wanted to fit in. But sometimes hanging with the wrong ones can pull you away from what's important. Not caring about anyone or anything, including herself. Anchored by temptation, The devil's grasp had her bowing at the feet of crack cocaine, taking her to a world she could never fathom. Separated from family, imprisoned, nothing left but a razor under the tongue.
Wow, you wrote that.
Yeah,
Most-
we all worked on it together.
Most excellent. Wow.
Yeah,
very, very good. That's incredible, man.
Yeah.
It's very,
bit of a piece, though.
Yeah, we all worked on it together. Seven Leslie and Emily Heddefer. We got together over the break. We started working on it like in class, and then over the break, we met up somewhere, and then we started to build on it. And then Miss Rice had to help us with some of the writing too, like just fixing it up.
very emotional for you. This is very real for you.
Yeah.
I think that's great because it's one of these deals because you come in the studio, you're a big guy. You look at the paper, you're a good-looking big guy, and you're thinking football player, and then you come up with something like this. So it really does. It's touched your heart and you as an individual. So good for you, man.
Thanks.
I'm really proud of you. Way to go. I think that's fantastic. And you're going to be performing. It's called Stones of Hope: Stories of Recovery. It's the civic engagement play from Tractor Shed Theater, St. Stephen's High School. Of course, it's going to raise awareness for and benefit Exodus Homes. So I'm really glad you stopped by this morning, man. You're going to be playing ball in college. I know you're going to be a theater major, right?
I don't know about ball, but
Right.
I know it for theater. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Well, you got intramurals, right?
Yeah.
You got soccer. You got all other kinds of stuff. And so thanks so much for joining us this morning. Really do
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Let's talk next with Addison Whaley. Move that microphone on over there, Miss Whaley. You can go ahead and pick that up. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Good to see you. So you're born and raised in Illinois.
Yes, I am.
Okay, was that Chicagoland area?
I am 2 hours south of Chicago and
Right.
3 north of Springfield.
Well, there you go. We know exactly where you are.
Right in the middle somewhere.
Right in the middle somewhere. And you've been here how long now? You came here about when?
The summer before my 7th grade year, and
Okay.
I'm a sophomore now.
So you've been here for a while, right?
4-ish years.
4-ish years.
Yeah.
And you were involved in theater out in Illinois?
No, we did not have a theater program
Oh,
in
wow.
Illinois,
Right.
so it was a whole new thing for me when I moved here.
Right.
I was brought into it with my friends in 7th grade.
Right.
And I was one of the only people out of the friend group who still continued with it and still followed through with it.
Right.
So that I went up to high school and was still very interested in the program and still found out that, hey, maybe this is what I want to do with my life. Maybe this is what I meant to do with my life.
Right. Very. Isn't
So,
that great that you
yeah.
had that opportunity that
Yeah.
you may have never had? And I know 7th grade had to be tough moving, had to be tough picking up and moving in 7th grade because that's when you got all your buddies and
Right.
stuff going on, and then you pick up and you move. But you find a theater group, and it's something now that you've made new friends and you're stuck with. When we come back, I want to talk to you about your role and what you're doing in the show. Maybe a little bit about your visit to Exodus Homes as well. Is that okay?
All right.
All right, more First Talk. So enjoy those tickets. Addison Whaley joins us next this morning. We're talking about the civic engagement performance performed by the St. Stephen's High School Tractor Shed Theater. We've talked this morning with Molly Rice, the director, educator, Reverend Susan Smith Walker, Assistant Executive Director of Exodus Homes, the recipient of the benefit for awareness and fundraising. Josh Killian, senior, going to be attending Western Carolina next year, so that's fantastic. We're looking forward to that. Addison Whaley joins us next, a sophomore. We talked with her a little bit before the break about her role, and tell me about your visit because everybody went and visited Exodus Homes. Tell me a little bit about that as a sophomore. I don't know that you probably were that plugged into to know about recovery. Maybe you've seen some TV shows, or maybe you heard a little bit about recovery. But tell me about your voyage over there, and tell me a little bit about the trip. Was it an eye-opener for you as well?
Actually, I knew what I was going into when I went. Exodus was one of my it was my top choice for what I wanted to do for civic engagement.
Right.
Mainly because it hits home for me. My dad is recovering from drug addiction, still in the works of it, so I know what it's about.
You've seen it, you've experienced
Right.
it. Right.
Right. So that's why this our show hits really hard for me.
Right.
And I'm so interested in it, and I'm so intrigued in what we're doing and what Exodus is actually doing for our community.
I think that's fantastic. Good for you. So this is a very personal, I'm sure very
Right.
difficult for you as well, like it was for Josh. So you can share as much or as little of what you're going to be doing with the show. Tell us about your performance that you have in the show. Boy, Molly Rice really hits hard, doesn't she? I mean,
Yeah.
she really does. She really goes for it. She really goes for it, doesn't she? Tell me about what you're going to be performing, what you're going to be doing, what's your role in the show.
Okay. I am not doing it on, like most kids in the class, I'm not doing it on a specific person.
Right?
I am taking statistics, stigmatism, Martin Luther King Jr., and my family story and putting it all into one.
Oh, really?
So
will this be a spoken word piece? Is this going to be? Tell me about how you're doing this. Tell me about what method you're using to express this.
Yes. I think the only way I can explain it is the way Miss Rice explained it. It's almost sermon-like.
Okay.
In the way that I am performing it, in the way that I'm saying it. So
Now you can share that with us this morning if you'd like to. If you don't want to, you certainly don't have
that's
to.
fine.
Okay, very good. So this is Addison Whaley this morning with a segment from what she'll be doing with Stories of Hope. Stones of Hope, Stories of Recovery. This upcoming Monday, Dr. Martin Luther King Day, at Exodus Homes.
from what I can see, we have an empathy problem. Stigma is strong, and teens my age think that it is laughable when someone struggles with homelessness, mental health disorders, and substance abuse. Doing and selling drugs have become such a part of our landscape that we navigate around those who are lost on a daily basis. We don't tell on them or try to help them because then we become a snitch, a narc, a rat. So we avoid the subject altogether. Words, labels make it easier to deal with any true feelings we may have about the addict or situation. Stigma is a mark of disgrace. But what about grace, the free and unmerited favor of God?
Wow. Wow. Very, very nice. Molly Rice really does. every time we have this annually, I hear such wonderful things from students who dig deep and find out about things that are going on in their lives and in lives around them. So this civic engagement that she does every year, it's a big deal. Now, were you involved in last year's
I
civic?
was.
And how about you, Josh?
I was involved in the last 2 years.
Right, and it is big, isn't it? I mean,
Yes.
it really makes you dig deep, and maybe some things that you normally don't get in a classroom. You don't
Right.
think about going to school and exploring this part of it. I got to ask you, Miss Whaley, the part of, and I'm sure that it is true, but is that the situation? Parents don't talk about this, right?
Right.
Parents don't talk about it. Mom and Dad, when you come home, you're not talking about addiction. You're not
Right.
talking about opioids, painkillers.
Right.
You're not talking about crack or weed or drugs or alcohol at all. And then you get to school and you got kids who are doing drugs or who are drinking before
Right.
legal age, but no one wants to talk about that.
Exactly.
No one wants to talk about recovery. Or have you ever seen anybody, I'll ask you this too, Josh, just kind of kicking in as well. Do you ever know anybody at your school who you say, wow, that person's really got it rough. I can't believe they're actually here today. You know, you see somebody who's like really, stoned or really just, burning out early.
Right.
Do you see that? And like people aren't helping them or talking to them?
Yeah, I see it daily. Maybe that's just because I know what to look for.
Right.
And it's easier for me to tell that. But some of my friends, some of the people that I know, they're struggling with it, but we don't bring the situation up. We don't talk about it because it's sensitive.
How about you, Josh? You know anybody like that at school? Somebody who's having a really difficult time, and maybe you'd like to say, dude, get it together, man. I mean, you were really wasted away. Do you know anybody like that? Have you seen that happen at your school?
Well, I see people like that sometimes in classes, but I don't really, I wouldn't really say anything.
Engage them, right?
Yeah,
right.
I kind of just isolate myself from people like that.
Sure, and people like that, sometimes they're isolating themselves. They're, by that activity and making those decisions to say, don't want to be around it, don't want to hear it. So, yeah, I guess that you would see that in high school and in school and in society in general.
It's really hard to navigate the landscape. It's Hickory. We know we have a serious problem. Some Tractor Shed also with Molly Bass and the funeral home. We went in with Hickory High School to join in for an overdose awareness.
Saw you there.
Yeah, and what a power! We need more dialogue. We need more commune in this, to face it, to deal with it, and to tell the truth of
We've
it.
got 30 seconds left, Susan.
I think it's important for people to know that these students came and really spent time at Exodus Homes, and I knew from my experience that probably most of them have personal experience with addiction and incarceration. And I
Absolutely.
asked at the end, how many of you here sitting with me today have had personal experience through family members or friends with addiction or
Yes.
incarceration? And most of them raised their hand.
Absolutely.
They're no stranger to this subject.
No.
We're going to go ahead and close, but we'll be right back with some information on the show. I just want to remind people that this show is about recovery. That's the purpose of the show, is to let people know that, as Susan Smith said, we do recover. The Reverend Susan Smith Walker joined us this morning, Assistant Executive Director of Exodus Homes. Addison Whaley, sophomore at St. Stephen's. Josh Killian, senior at St. Stephen's. Thank you both very much. And, of course, Molly Rice, Director Educator, St. Stephen's High, Tractor Shed Theater, Monday at Exodus Homes, Stones of Hope.
With Hal Rowe, WHK